The South African Human Rights Commission is probing the circumstances that led to the death of a 15-year-old boy in Soweto. It's alleged a teacher had mocked him about his sexuality in front of a full classroom, which is then believed to have led to the pupil taking his own life. Let's talk about this with Advocate Gaum, who's a commissioner with the South African Human Rights Commission. A very good afternoon to you, sir. Welcome to the program. Let's begin with the basics, the scope of your investigation and what you would be looking to determine.
Yes, obviously we will attempt to determine what exactly happened here and whether the mocking of the learner by the student teacher, that is the allegation, is there a relationship between that and the death of the learner. So we're looking at the human rights violations, alleged human rights violations, unfair discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation, human dignity issues, the right to a basic education that is at stake here as well as, and then also the best interests of the child. It is a great shock to the South African Commission, South African Human Rights Commission, what has happened here. This should not happen in our schools. Teachers should most definitely, first of all, through life orientation, make sure that learners, are taught that diversity is a very important value also in our Constitution, and that unfair discrimination on any of those prohibited grounds in Section 9 of the Constitution is totally prohibited. But not only prohibited, it's also a matter of prejudices that really needs to be addressed here. So in terms of going forward as well, the Commission has had engagements already with the Department of Basic Education. We believe that diversity education should become part of the curriculum. And we also believe that all learners and teachers and parents, that there should be some diversity and sensitivity training taking place in all our schools, and therefore we're working with the Department of Basic Education to develop a program in this regard that can be rolled out in all schools. And
if indeed a link is drawn and confirmed between the death of this 15-year-old and the mocking by the teacher allegedly in a classroom, how far are you empowered to go in what you are able to report and then recommend as a way forward?
Yes, we don't only issue recommendations, also directives. So most certainly there will be certain directives flowing from this pertaining to the particular school in question, as well as the Department of Basic Education in Gauteng. We understand that research also indicates, and I think Out has referred to that teachers that teach life orientation sometimes tend to skip the chapters that deal with sexuality and sexual orientation and so on. So certainly we'll also look into that aspect, but it is quite clear that there is still too much intolerance pertaining to diversity and a lack of appreciation that diversity is a virtue, and our Constitution speaks of unity in diversity. That we are different in many respects, but we should use that as a strength and not look down on anyone that is different to us. And I think a lot more needs to be done in the education system pertaining to those particular issues. Hence our engagement with the National Department of Basic Education in this regard. This should not happen anymore in modern day South Africa. It is completely unacceptable, completely unconstitutional, and indicates certain prejudices even among student teachers, allegedly in this case, that should have been addressed long ago, and even at university level as well. And therefore we're also pushing very strongly for a diversity and sensitivity program to be implemented in universities, and for a human rights module that should be implemented at all universities for first-year students, they should complete this module. It should be compulsory during their first years.
But how...
During their first year.
Are those sort of programs really effective, though? Because there have been instances where people do attend diversity training in the workplace, at school, etc., but do it only to tick the box and make sure that whatever uncomfortable situation had been brought forward is basically, they're able basically to move on from that.
I think the current problem is, when a crisis emanates from a particular school, then, there are diversity and sensitivity program and so on that's implemented in that school. It should be universal, compulsory, and across the board. And that's what we are advocating and working towards achieving with the other stakeholders, such as the Department of Basic Education, but also universities. Because if the allegation is correct that this has been a student teacher, then obviously this is a student that receives, that is linked to a particular university. And it is really concerning that these kinds of intolerance and prejudice matters haven't been addressed also at that level at the university.
And if what has been said about the circumstances around Tiro Mwalusi's death is true, it would be made more cruel by allegations that he had sought help, intervention from some of the other teachers at the school in Soweto, but no one intervened.
No, absolutely. So all those allegations we'll have to look into. We have to see what exactly went wrong here. We must understand that children go to schools and it becomes a huge part of their lives. And if there is intolerance on a prohibited ground against them in terms of their sexuality, race, whatever the case may be, and they feel left out, it applies immense pressure on learners. And what has allegedly happened here is clearly not in the best interest of the child, which is supposed to be paramount as our Constitution states. So now we'll look into all these different aspects and then come up with very clear recommendations and directives.
And we're talking here about the mocking of a boy for his sexuality, but I would imagine that abuse or discrimination based on one's sexual orientation, sexuality, sexual identity is in fact more likely to be underreported in the school environment.
Yes, no, I think you're absolutely right there. And therefore, I also want to make use of this opportunity to call on parents and learners to really come forward, to come to the Commission and to lay a complaint, when this kind of thing happens, so that we can intervene immediately and prevent tragedies of this nature from happening.
Gaum with the South African Human Rights Commission. Good to have your time, Advocate. Thank you.